There's ways to get out of a speeding ticket, and you may be asking yourself, why do I care about this? I'm a personal injury lawyer every day. I don't practice traffic ticket law by default. Why am I making this video? Well, I'll tell you. I'm making this video because it impacts personal injury claims. My clients are involved in accidents. We represent car accident victims. And often my client is blamed, at least in part, for their contribution to that accident. My clients are shocked when they hear from me that the insurance company on the other side, the one representing the at-fault driver, is blaming them for their speed, is blaming them for their contribution to the accident. My client thinks they're not at fault. My client thinks they did everything right, that they were driving prudently, safely, responsibly, following the rules of the road. And then all of a sudden, I'm telling them as their lawyer, guess what? The other side thinks you have a share in the blame, that you could have driven more safely, that you were speeding, that you were reckless. And this is a real wake-up call to clients. So I want to tell you how you can fight back against this if you happen to be caught speeding and you get a ticket. And I'm here to tell you, just because you get a ticket doesn't mean it's right, but what you do about it is very impactful. As a personal injury lawyer, if my client has been convicted of speeding, meaning you didn't challenge the ticket and just you're found guilty, or if you do contest the ticket and you're still found guilty, then in the insurance world, we consider you to have been speeding and your damages will be assessed accordingly and they'll be reduced because of your speed, because it's not safe. So if you're watching this video and you're somebody who's been ticketed for speeding, here's what you need to know. Here are some steps you can take to ensure that you're not wrongfully convicted of an offense you didn't do. So there's really 5 ways that you can defend yourself against a speeding ticket. I'm gonna walk through them. The first one, of course, is you weren't speeding. If you weren't speeding, you shouldn't be convicted of speeding. So if that's you, you need to advance an argument. The second one is that you weren't driving your car at the time. Of course, the infraction is for the person that's behind the wheel. And if it wasn't you, but it was your car, for example, then you need to bring that evidence forward. You shouldn't be convicted if you weren't the one at the wheel. The other one, the third reason, is lack of proper notice. If the road wasn't signed and you couldn't know the speed limit, then you can't be convicted of speeding. It's not fair. You need to appreciate what the speed limit is, or at least had the opportunity to look and to know. But if it's not there for you to know, it's not fair for you to be convicted. The fourth is that the police officer identified the speed of the wrong vehicle. It's possible, and we'll talk about this in a minute, that the measuring device recorded the speed of the wrong car. Maybe you were going the speed limit or under the speed limit, but the officer made a mistake. That's a valid defense to a speeding ticket. And if that's the case in your circumstance, you need to bring that forward. And the fifth is that the circumstance at the time you may have been driving too quickly required you to be driving that speed. Things happen on the road, we know that. There are aggressive drivers, things to avoid, emergency circumstances where you may need to do a quick lane change or go around another vehicle or speed up to avoid a collision. Facts matter, circumstance matters. And if this is the basis for your speed and a very legitimate defense for the traffic citation, you need to bring that forward. It's so important to a personal injury claim because your claim shouldn't be reduced because of something that really wasn't your fault or that really doesn't attract blame. Now I want to go forward to the next part of this video, which is about 3 common measuring devices and some things to think about. The first is radar. We see it in movies. We know it's a historically used tool by police everywhere. But there's some weaknesses to this device. Radar shoots out a beam and records a speed. It needs to be calibrated by the officer. Sometimes it's not. It needs to be documented as calibrated by the officer. Sometimes it's not. The radar can, as it goes forward, it projects outwards. It could record the wrong vehicle. So consider your circumstance, consider the traffic, consider other vehicles around. Did it really record your speed? Is that speed actually documented and saved in the measuring device itself? Often it isn't, depending on the device. The second measuring device is Lidar. This is a laser unit that's much more accurate. It produces a very narrow beam with a view panel for the officer so they can target a specific vehicle and get a reliable result that projects and is saved. It can be shown to the driver what their speed was. It's very hard to battle against Lidar traffic citations. So I can encourage you to think of circumstance and think if there is a need for you to be driving the speed that you were at the time. The Lidar won't appreciate that, but your recollection of the scene and the circumstance will matter greatly if you're contesting this ticket, both in conversation with the police officer or before the court. And the third one, perhaps the most questionable, is pacing. Pacing means the officer is driving and using their speedometer to measure your speed. And it's a bit curious, right? Because there's so many police cars now with radar in the vehicles that's front and back. They don't have to do anything to record your speed. It just projects in the car, the vehicle ahead of them. But pacing's different. Pacing is the officer actually catching up to you and maintaining a speed behind you. They look at their speedometer and say, oh yeah, the car's going 125 in a 110 zone, speeding. But it's not that simple. And many of my clients who retain me as a personal injury lawyer have been accused of speeding. And when we dig into this, we see that it's pacing evidence. And that an officer, so as they say, sped up, caught up to my vehicle, paced them for hundreds of meters in many seconds. And what we discover when we ask for disclosure, meaning the evidence that the Crown's going to rely on, the vehicle isn't calibrated. The officer could not have sped up fast enough and maintained a clear gap with my client's vehicle for a reasonable amount of time. It's just not credible. And it's happened in my practice that when we actually dig into this, that the conviction never happens because the officer can't present valid, good evidence, and the Crown doesn't proceed with the citation. So what happens? It's a great result for my client. It means that the personal injury claim proceeds. It means they don't have a reduction for contributory negligence. It means that their insurance premiums don't increase. And it means that they don't have to pay a ticket. It's a win across the board. So if you're thinking about the legitimacy of a traffic ticket and whether you should contest it, and especially in the circumstance of a personal injury claim, you need to have that conversation with their lawyer, and your personal injury lawyer should really care about it because it matters greatly. If you have questions about a personal injury claim or a traffic ticket, you should get in touch. At Nova Injury Law, we're all about educating and informing the public. If I can do something to help you appreciate your rights and what you should do, the strategy you should think of, good ideas for your specific case, I'm here to help you. We do personal injury, motor vehicle cases every single day. You don't have a question that hasn't been asked to us before, and we're keen to give you the answers so you can make informed decisions. So if you're sitting there with questions about what to do today, just contact us by phone, email, text, whatever is easiest for you. My team will get back to you today with answers that will help you make good decisions tomorrow. I wish you all the best and take care.